Okay, so, hi YouTubers, and I went to see Lilo and Stitch live action remake, spoilers for movie. Now, I'm gonna be real with you all, so I'm just I'll put that there, and that'll go away for some odd reason. And what I mean is that, it was a good movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, you have opinions if your movies either, if the movie you like or don't like is good or bad, if you know what I mean. But anyways, this Lilo and Stitch live action remake was interesting. I mean, yeah, the CGI wasn't really how would I describe it, not as good as the original, but I mean, it was interesting. And, yeah, since this is a live-action remake, I was surprised to find out that the first and second act of the film were actually, reported into, the live-action movie. Which I guess is surprisingly good for some odd reason. The third act of the film, and, of course, the main villain from the animated Lilo and Stitch movie, Gontu, are not present in this movie. Instead, Jumba becomes the villain, which I guess is very weird considering that Gontu was the original main antagonist, and then, Jumba was sort of the minor antagonist, and Pinkley, and I think Pinkley was basically I think he was pretty much like the sidekick from the original movie, and still is in the live-action movie, but yeah. Other than that, I guess that's all I pretty much have to say. The first and second act are similar to the animated movie. The third act is not. The original main villain isn't there, Gontu, and instead, so yeah, you can kind of piece together what I'm trying to say is the plot. It starts off just like the original movie, Lilo, before Lilo meets Stitch and all that. Basically, it's just like the truth is that the first and second half from, the first half and the second half of the movie is just the animated movie, and then the third half is oh well, let's just make Jumba the villain instead and call it the third act. So you see what I'm trying to say is, I don't need to mention the whole plot because this Lilo and Stitch live action remake uses most half of the plot, and then the other, and then a third and a quarter other half of the plot are both different. The first half of the plot and the second half are basically the animated movie plot as a whole. So there's really no explanation for all of that. It's basically just the same thing. Stitch escapes the Galactic Council, gets sent to Earth, and then meets Lilo via a pet service area. I forgot about that. Everyone knows about that, but whatever. And then it's pretty much just the first and second half of the movie are pretty much just like the animated movie as a whole. And then the live action part of the movie is basically just the third half, which, like I said before, is where Jumba is revealed to be the villain, or a plot twist villain in a way. And, they pretty much cut out a lot of the scenes that were left out in the original animated movie. There was, a post-credits scene where, Lilo and Stitch, where Nani goes back home to meet up with Lilo and Stitch, and then, of course, via that portal gun. And, I mean, yeah, and speaking of portal gun, there were a lot of references. Purple Rain, Portal 2, and just straight up lots of references to Elvis Presley. So either way, all three of those kinds of references were obviously in the movie. And of course with a little bit of modern songs to keep audiences' interest in a way. Kind of like me in a way, but much better in every way possible. So I didn't mean that. That was like a joke. Don't take that seriously. So, yeah, I think there's not really much to explain. Like I said before, it's basically parts of the animated movie, and then later just do parts of it as a live action movie. I think that's kind of how I would like to describe it. Or another word of how I could, other words of how I could describe it are make first and second half of the movie animated, based off of animated movie. Third half, basically just do whatever in the Lilo and Stitch live action remake for the rest of the third and final half of the movie. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole plot of the movie, so there's really no explanation. I mean, yeah, it takes so. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised that this Disney live action remake takes more, like the Lilo and Stitch one, takes so much more, like, you know, of like the animated movies plot from like 2002, which I honestly found rather surprising that 23 years later they used most of the plot from, like, most of it and some of it, not all of it, not every detail, not every character from the original animated movie 23 years ago. But yeah, I guess it was an experience. Either way, whatever they used from the animated movie and whatever they didn't use, and actually ended up making whatever they could for the live action version or remake or whatever, it still caught my eye and it was still interesting. Though one of the many things that I found out to be rather interesting was the CGI, the Terry Crews, which I was honestly surprised. Terry Crews in a Disney live action remake movie. You don't get those. You don't get any of those. You probably won't get any more of those after this one. Probably not. But who knows? He could be in, like, I don't know, Sword in the Stone live action remake or any other one. Like, I'm just saying, he could be in any Disney live action remake, and it would still caught my eye, and it would still be interesting. You know. And, yeah, it's just, it's kind of hard to think because I kind of already know what happens in this live action remake. I already know how it goes down because most of it is because the plot is basically half of it, two halves of it are based off of the animated movie, and then one of the other half is basically something that was already made up on the fly. So that way they could keep it, like, get it working and get it going very well. Aside from that, everything else was perfectly good, and yeah, it's kind of hard to think, but there was a post-credits scene. There was, yeah, like I mentioned before, with Nani going back. First, it was Zoom call, later turned portal. She went from doing a Zoom call for Lilo and Stitch, and then Nani ended up going to their bedroom. Terry Crews had character, or Cobra Bubbles, eventually goes upstairs thinking that Lilo and Stitch are doing TikToks, a reference to TikTok as a whole. And then, yeah, he just sees Lilo and Stitch sleeping with Nani secretly. Of course, he doesn't know that. And then that pretty much ends all of that. Like, that's the post-credits scene. And there you have it. That's the Lilo and Stitch live-action remake. Honestly, it's just super hard. Like, don't get me wrong. It's super easy in a way to, like, you know, like, to easily spoil this movie. Because, you know, most of it is, like, the animated movie, while some of it is actually the live-action remake in and of itself. Which, don't get me wrong, is the super easy part. But the super hard part is that it's hard to remember like this. And I'm sure there are many others who are doing this just like me that are having this problem, but eventually will be fixed along the line. So, yeah, I guess that's it for today and everything. So, yeah, peace out, bye-bye. Yeah.